What's going on, you guys? What's happening? We are now into the Power Hour. It's your host, the man, the myth, far from a legend, 950 Kevin Pryor. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and I want to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, the biological ones who do what they need to do, the ones who fill in for the ones who are not there, the uncles and the grandfathers and the big brothers who just want to see kids grow the proper adults. We salute you and I thank you. Joining me tonight is my brother, co-host of this thing, producer extraordinaire. I couldn't do without him, Mike, the moderator. What's going on, sir?
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Nah, no question about it. I mean, it's obviously I am not a biological father, but I spend money like one. And I'm happy to do it, helping out my nieces and nephews, my sister's kids, and it's always a blessing. So again, like I said, I salute those who are doing the right things, who are not just fathers but dads. That's a better word, right? Father is somebody just hey, contributed to your existence, but being a dad is special. So salute to all the dads out there.
That's a whole different ball game. I think father is. I was just talking to somebody about that today, and father is really just a clerical logistic. It's just a tab on a birth certificate. It's a line that needs to be filled out. It's really just a name tag.
Yeah.
Dad, now that right there.
That matters.
That right there. That one right there. And dad can be, any man who steps in the gap, right? Who provides something that can't be given by anybody else other than, that man who understands those feelings, those emotions, or lack thereof, and has a certain vision because he sees the world a certain way. Like, much like their mothers and then there's mom.
Yeah.
There's fathers and then there's dad.
Yeah.
So to all the dads, and that's not knocking from the people who do the best that they can.
Of course.
They too are dads,
Yeah.
right? Doing the best you can, honestly, legitimately, wholeheartedly, no objectives, but just doing what's right.
Yeah.
And by someone, whether you're biologically obligated to or not, right? So to you fellas, whenever you watch this, happy Father's Day.
No doubt. And for those fathers, it's always Father's Day because you're doing everything the right way every day. We could do that at 9:50, but it's a sports show, Mike.
No doubt.
Big sports weekend, man. I had a chance over the weekend to watch Tank Davis Martin fight. And to me, listen, I'm not really big UFC guy. I will ask anyone who's UFC who listens to the Power Hour, hey, you want to educate me and school me by all means. But there is at this point in sports, there is no one athlete, in my opinion, more exciting than Gervonta Tank Davis. The type of performance he put on last night, 14 months out, absent from the ring, comes in pretty much, fields out his opponent the first few rounds. And, I'm watching the fight and his trainer's like, oh, you got to win the rest of the rounds. And it's like clockwork. He dissected Martin. Martin fought a pretty good fight up until that. But the power, he's almost like a 133-pound size of what Mike Tyson was years ago. He is just dynamite personified. And to me, right now, as we're talking today, the one most preeminent sports attraction outgoing right now. I mean, it's incredible. I don't know if did you see the fight?
I didn't see the fight, but just seeing all the different entities speaking either on the fight as it was upcoming, the night thereof, or the results was polarizing.
Yeah.
Right? It's totally polarizing. And I really don't know that we have that in a fresh state.
Yeah.
Right? All the other polarizing items, Golden State Warriors done curtailed.
Yeah.
LeBron has done curtailed. Everything else is niche, right? So the Williams sisters,
Right. I
Tiger
guess
Woods,
Caitlin Clark at this point, right?
Tiger Woods is a shell of his mere self, but
Yeah.
still commands some form of reverence.
Right.
Caitlin has become polarizing. I just don't know if she's become polarizing for the reasons
For the
that
right.
right. She's
Right.
become
For the
polarizing,
talent reasons, more
right, for
of
the talent reasons,
right. Yeah.
right. So, and all the arguments around her. So, yeah, I have to agree with you, right. So, I mean, if you're a baseball fan, I mean, what are you talking about? Juan Soto gives Aaron Judge space in the lineup, which is
Yeah.
allowing him to have, you got to pick your poison, right? But
Right.
even then, that's a niche.
Yeah.
So therefore, what's the young lady Osaka, the tennis player, right?
Yes.
Again, we're talking about small niches. This is something where if you go through social media, if you even go through regular media,
Mm-hmm.
everyone is talking about. So
Yeah.
yeah, I have to agree. You may very well be right.
Again, like I said, I'm a big boxing fan, and as much as I love football and basketball, and we're gonna talk more about the finals in a little bit, but a boxing match, that walk to the ring in a big fight to me is probably the biggest hype machine there is in sports. And then you take a guy who's box office who just like delivers every time. You know, him and Bud Crawford, not to say I'm a gambler, I don't gamble no more. I get slapped in the head. But if I never going hungry betting on Davis or Bud Crawford. Davis again this weekend, phenomenal fight. Obviously, we witnessed game 4. The Mavericks woke up from their slumber, really pretty much laid the smack down to Boston. Uh, game 5 is Monday. For those listening tonight, if you're listening on radio, but again, your thoughts on game 4, and is it any? We don't have to dive into too deep. I just want to get you into the next segment, but is it any opportunity for the Mavericks to come back? We've never seen it before, but again, it's always got to be something's always got to be the first, right? But does Dallas still have a shot?
I mean, as long as you ball and you always have a shot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reality of it, right?
Right.
The opportunity is there. As long as you have the opportunity, then there's always the possibility, as minute and minuscule as it may far away in a galaxy exist. Do I think it's possible? No. Do I think it's probable? Absolutely not. I really think this was just, you know what, we can't lose this thing at home.
Yeah.
And from the Boston side, it's, you know what, it's a gentleman's sweep. So, you know what I'm saying? We'll go home. We'll take care of this. They lost. Let them travel. We'll
Right.
already be home. However,
Mm-hmm.
however, since you can absolutely positively never say never,
Ever.
ever,
Yep.
should Dallas win game
5.
5,
Yeah.
right? Which would then make it 3-2. This just got interesting.
Well, the reason why, and again, like I said, Mike, like I said, I'm not a degenerate gambler, so I'm like, oh yeah, like some of these people, they're back. No, but I do believe Dallas has a chance to get this to at least game 6. I think again they found something in game 4. Now, if you're a Boston fan, you say that's just like a paper dragon, a white tiger roaming through Boston Road in New York City. It just doesn't happen. Maybe it happens once in a lifetime. What happened on Friday night is not the norm, and I can respect that. But I think Dallas, to me, have found a little bit of a chink in the armor. I think again, people have downplayed the Porzingis not being around. And I think what we saw on Friday, they could use Kristaps. I think again, Dallas locked in on defense. Tim Hardaway Jr. had an eruption, looking like Michigan Day, stunting like his daddy. Big shout to Tim Hardaway
True
Sr.
indeed. True indeed.
The
True
UTEP,
indeed.
StuTep,
He
one of my
showed up.
favorite. Yep, one of my favorite players. He showed up big. That's huge confidence for a guy like that. If you get that guy to be able to step up and play that way on Monday, that opens up the game for Kyrie, for Luka, and the rest of the Magic. Lively played well. You know, Exum, they got contribution. And the one thing about Dallas, unlike our guy Tibbs, they're not afraid to play 10, 11 guys. And I think again, that's not the norm for playoff basketball. I think J Kidd has found something. I'm interested to see what happens Monday night. I'm not saying that Boston could easily close them out, but I think Dallas found something, and I'm not ready to say, okay, Dallas is going to come back and win the series and do something that's never happened before. But I am saying that they can win Game 5. And I know the networks want it because if the networks don't get 6 games, they owe money. So the NBA owes money to the networks. So again, I think it's a interesting situation. We'll all be watching. Even in the Stanley Cup playoffs, I don't want to not mention that. Edmonton, which was down 3-0 to Florida, came back over the weekend, handled business. Connor McDavid and his crew with Edmonton Oilers found myself watching a little hockey this weekend, moderator. So again, playoff all levels. You find it where you get it.
I started watching hockey a while ago. So absolutely. That seeing that was interesting because I had Edmonton done.
Yeah.
Right. So the way Florida looked, the way Florida dispatched the Rangers and I watched that, but this is interesting.
Yeah. And they played Tuesday back in Sunrise, Florida, right outside of Miami. But again, that's great. Before we go to a break, another big sports news item popped up over the weekend. Charles Barkley has announced that he's retiring after the 24-25 season. Your thoughts on that? Is that you think just because the TNT probably losing the NBA, or does this guy realize that traditional media is it's not what it used to be? I have my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours.
Well, I think like most things, I think that when you work with a constituency that you've grown with as a family, you make concessions, but you also have hardline stances, right? So from a business perspective, which is what the show really addresses, right?
Right.
Economically speaking, nobody on that set is fiscally going to be hurt because there's no more NBA on TNT.
Right. Yeah, steak and beans. No, don't want to have to worry about the beans and rice to be steak there.
Right. So you figure when you do something you enjoy and love, you don't work a day. Right. Yeah. So Charles ain't worked in 25 years. And no, we're not talking about rodeo. Right. No. So
9 for 11, 6 to 9 Eastern, most networks.
That's right.
Monday through Friday.
That's right. Shameless plug. But I mean, I do believe him at the moment.
Yeah.
Right. So, he doesn't want to go somewhere new. He doesn't want to start with new people.
Yeah.
And if anyone who's in media and broadcasting, as you can attest, even though our back end is small, right? 1 to 5 people on the back end. On a production like that, there's hundreds of people that you just come to know. And maybe he don't want to go through that. He doesn't have to.
Right. Money's not an issue. Right.
Got a gold jacket. And if we take it again, if we go back to economics, dude, if he's not on TNT anymore, he could make the rounds. He could do the Barkley show. He could go to Club Shay Shay route. He could go to Nightcap route. He could go and pocket more money.
And not to cut you off, I'm going to take a break. I want to dive into that because we are two guys that really understand and appreciate the media game. Obviously, we're part of new media as well, but with a base of traditional. I want to talk about that a little bit because I think the Barkley thing, obviously, yes, maybe God doesn't want to restart, but I think it's a little bit bigger than that. And we're going to take a quick break here in Powwow. We got a great show. We're going to dive more into the NBA Finals. But we're going to come back. I want to talk about this Charles Barkley thing and this new rhythm of where media is going. Not to mention a couple other things have happened. Shannon Sharp's new contract. But let's talk about a little bit. We're just getting started, lighting the match here. The Power Hour, 950 Kev, Mike the moderator. Don't go nowhere. Come on back. We're back on the Power Hour. Myself, 950 Kevin Pryor, my co-pilot here, Mike, the moderator, holding us down. Um, Again, the first segment we would get into the situation. Obviously, the NBA has brand new TV partners. While it has not been officially announced, probably won't happen to after the finals. It looks like TNT, which pretty much got outbid by NBC, and not by a small amount either. NBC will probably have their own pregame show, the whole bit. TNT and inside the NBA has become a tradition. TNT has been a very vital NBA partner well before initially NBC, before ESPN, back when it was just TNT and CBS, and TBS Superstation, for those I'm showing my age. But now that we've come into a new era, streaming is really important. Amazon is now going to be in the NBA business, along with NBC recapturing the NBA, and they haven't had it since the Bulls days when they were winning championships. Now, you was mentioning, Mike, in the previous segment about maybe Barkley doesn't want to just start over. Hey, if you're a normal mortal that goes to work, and maybe another company offers you a little bit more money, but you say, you know what, I got to start over. I got to know a new product. I got to know new people. I'm just comfortable in the skin I'm in. I think, Mike, in my opinion, Barkley, who's a guy, and we look at the spectrum of new media, Shannon Sharp, um, Draymond Green, even Gilbert Arenas, this new bravado, shock. I say what I want, I do what I want, and I do it how I like it. That was Charles Barkley, and for so many years, Charles Barkley played that role on TNT, CNN, which is a part of that family. He played that role, and pretty much, if I like to say I'm correct, was one of the few people on national television that can get away with stuff. I think Charles Barkley is looking at the paradigm of traditional media and saying, you know what? I can probably work less, make more money, not have to follow the company toe the line, and I can pretty much do it how I want to do it in a non-traditional, now becoming traditional media functionality. Your thoughts on that?
Basically, what you're saying is Charles realizes that he may have the opportunity to become a bigger Pat McAfee. That's
Yeah, yeah,
exactly what you're saying,
yeah.
right? In reverse,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
whereas McAfee parlayed his sports career. I don't know if anybody really remembers him of any substance.
Uh-huh.
I heard Pat McAfee. I was like, is that the dude that make the antivirus for your computer? But then I realized, no, that wasn't that McAfee. Or
He's a
maybe
kicker. He's a kicker.
right. So,
Right.
but I mean, you still had kickers that were like, don't let me get to like the Matt Bars, who was like, nah, I'm not a kicker. I'm a football player.
Yeah.
And I can
Right.
remember a tackle or two he may have made, whether it was the Steeler days or ended his career with the Giants, if I remember correctly. Like, yeah. So I think Barkley saw that,
Yeah.
realized that working under your own terms is a whole different ball game.
Right.
There's enough entities willing to put money into it. You're not just talking about, well, Barstool giving Dion a deal.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, if you watch these podcasts, you see guys taking a break to read ads from companies that are advertising with them that you're like, wait, Tommy Copper is with roommates with Jalen and Josh and everybody, and you got tons of them with dudes giving the most cantankerous, disgruntled, venting old hurts. Gillerine is every I mean, Steven Jackson
Yeah.
and Matt Barnes. I mean, they don't always go that route, but they'll spit it out when they need to spit it out,
And
right?
they have the platforms to do it because it's kind of Wild West. Say what you want. Kind of wilder you say things, the more that goes viral in this day and age. So there's really no wrong answer. And not to cut you off, I think Barkley sees that.
I do. I absolutely do. I think that him of all people, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. He started this lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has been a more articulate, if I can even apply that with Charles in this lane, right? But he's been a more
Kenny.
right. He's been a more articulate
Right.
Morton Downey Jr. with the
Oh,
validation of a gold jacket career. And that's not a knock, right?
yeah.
That's the original Shock on TV,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Was Morton Downey Jr. And then we
Mm-hmm.
went to Steve Wilco and everybody else who came along.
Jerry Springer.
Jerry Springer and Maury and
I ain't the daddy, Maury.
right. Charles managed to take all of that in
Yeah.
one pile,
Right.
put his own little spin on it, got the validation of a top 50 NBA superstar,
Right.
Played in an era where he was legitimately the number 2 best player in an entire sport in my eyes, right? Yeah. It was Mike, it was him, and it was Clyde. Now, there are people that'll argue, and I mean Drexler, there are people that'll argue that with me, but at that time, media coverage wasn't what it was. So you wasn't seeing the numbers he was putting up in Portland. You wasn't seeing the things he was doing in Portland. You saw Mike, Chicago, media mecca. You saw Charles, East Coast, 120 minutes from New York City, ornery fans, right? Like, you saw him there. Then he goes to Phoenix. But, I mean, Charles, this has, I'm going to sail off into the sunset. I need a plane because there's too much bread for my golden parachute.
Right. And again, what is the man going to do? He's not like he's Steph Curry on the golf course. I know he plays golf and all that, but I mean, Barkley, I think, is like in his early 60s. I think is a situation where he's not ready to just go in a rocking chair. I know in the past there's been conversations about him running for public office, but that's well and far beyond at this point. So again, like I said, I just think that he sees the new vision.
But is it? Is it really? Let's dial back less than 2 years ago. Are you going to tell me that Charles couldn't garner more support than Herschel Walker?
I was going to say that. That's why we're joined to the hip here, because I guess you're right. If Herschel Walker could take a serious run with with one of the 2 major parties
and need a runoff.
Yeah.
Needed a runoff. Now, granted, that's not on him or on Warnock, right? They had a third dude running, right? So that kind of, them 452 votes that he stole kind of had you in a position where they didn't meet the percentages and had to have a runoff. But let's not just omit that for a minute. Runoff or not, like, you split a state with anybody. I don't care if Herschel Walker's competitor was Winn-Dixie, the grocery chain that I don't even think is in existence anymore.
No,
right?
I don't know.
Right? Kroger, right? I don't care if he ran against Kroger or Danny Wegman or whoever. Like, you garnered half a state.
Yeah.
80% of a state or something close to that, whatever the numbers are. Don't give me the math in at the moment.
I love Herschel the running back, but now as a senator. I guess you never know. I mean, I again, we're talking sports, sports reporters and maybe second acts. I can see Stephen A. Smith doing that. Obviously I know he's re-upped his deal, and so does Shannon Sharp, and they're gonna probably have him more and more in different outlets now outside First Take. Because one thing about ESPN, when they pay you money, they make sure they get every cent. They get every work out of you.
There's nothing. That's a dry cloth without the time they done. They done ringed every
They stomped the mud hole and walked it dry.
Right.
But I can see Stephen A. Smith looking at that. I know if you listen to his podcast, for those who do, he kind of taps into a lot of political things. Not always the most smart and brightest comments he makes. That's a debate for another day. But he does make those comments. And I think, again, whereas if we went back 5-10 years ago, the goal was to be able to go on a network and people pay you for your opinions and commentary. When this whole debate world started back with Cold Pizza with Skip Bayless, there was very little jobs. There wasn't that press on social media. Internet was just maybe checking your email and having something to work on at work for research. we're coming to a whole new world. And even as we're doing this in this power hour now, we are two people who again was reamed in traditional, but are products of new media. I just think that again, the days of, I mean, we know Shannon signed a big one. We know what obviously McAfee has done, but to me, those are the rarities. I just think that obviously, if you got a voice and you got a backing, why wouldn't you not take the next step? Um, we've seen it with Up in Smoke, with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes.
Love them
Uh,
two dudes. Love them
again,
dudes.
and these were guys that were on traditional media for whatever reason. And I think Matt still does some stuff, but again, they found their niche in New World. Even to the point where the New World gets picked up by traditional. I think that you can catch them on Showtime. Don't quote me on that. But it's just that we're in this new era that uh, the days of big time studios and flying people across country and all this green room, those days is over. And how
It's
we're doing this
gone.
conversation today, in the comforts of our own home, has become the norm. And I think the major guys who have made money traditionally, even beyond sports, they're now seeing the value of this, and the net and the markets and the organizations that want to advertise and promote and see a vehicle of profit here, they're getting involved in that game. And it's I mean, for where we sit at doing this show in 950 Lounge and Moonlight Vibes and a couple other things out the 950 universe, I'm all for it. I just think that it's interesting to see somebody like a Barkley who could easily have went to ESPN, could easily probably have went to NBC, say, you know what, I don't want to do it no more. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's highly interesting. Just the economic dynamics of it all, and spinning it the way you want to spin it. You make episodes. I mean, you would have to really comprehend it. You would have to look to another genre, and you'd really have to look to news.
Right.
You have to look at the time of Rush Limbaugh, almost at his height.
Right.
Right. I don't know that he may have went one rung down, but he was standing on the top of the ladder. So he really didn't go nowhere, right?
Right.
You look at the rise of a Glenn Beck,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who might have been at that moment 1A. So him
Really,
and Rush,
one of the ones, if you want to call one the golf ball as a podcast, then it's probably him.
right. So
Yeah.
they leave. I think Glenn did it first, right?
Yeah.
Glenn left traditional media first, took a presumed pay cut, but did he really? Did he really take a pay cut to go
Right.
from getting a salary to now you're on a subscription base,
Right.
where folks are paying for your content to sit here and watch you, and you're free to say anything you want, however far, whichever end of the spectrum is popular, far left, far right, right? And then look at the people who followed after that.
Yeah.
Right. So Rush Limbaugh, Star from Star in the Morning, right? You think
Big
about
fan of his
right. Think
his
about
outlets.
guys who went and did that before it was fashionable.
Right.
Right.
Those guys did it out of circumstance. I don't necessarily think Glenn Beck wanted to leave network. I don't know if that was his initially, but obviously they found something that said, you know what, I have an audience, I have a voice, and you know what, I'm gonna make this happen. And I salute those guys because I look at those as idols from a stamp, not so much about what they say, but just the way they move as businessmen in this industry. Right.
Listen, no matter how much they pay you, as long as we're using the term they pay you, you're not the boss.
Yeah.
So at what point does enough become enough, right? So if the litmus test is my time on the microphone for someone,
right,
I see what my draw is. Was there a Star in Buck Wild after Star left? No. The Star raised all kind of dust and legal issues and threatening people, kids, whatever it was, right? So he knew he could bring everybody to the yard, right? So let me go put this in a vein where I can benefit the most and absolutely call my own shots. And the only person any of us in this lane particularly work for is whoever you get your internet provision from. Right? And as long as you pay the bill, they ain't fixing to cut you off.
Exactly. Before we crush this thing and go to a break, do you think that we're in an overkill standpoint now. There was once a time where it was too many rappers, right? There was once a time where it was just like everybody wanted to be an actor, right? I remember it was an era that everybody wanted to act, and even when like these non-traditional factors like Tubi and all these other things, everybody's doing movies or everybody's in a play. Salute to the people doing it. But do you think we're at a point now where it's just overkill? I go to YouTube, right? I'm a big YouTube fan. I probably watch more YouTube than I do regular television when it's just regular night. And I see all these programs, all these podcasts, I guess we call it now, on Deion Sanders and Caitlin Clark, and it's just like people who they get the information from X Twitter. Are we at a point where it's just like it's an overload? Um, and do we look toward the guys like a Barkley and Club Shay Shay as a balance because we can now identify with those people who do it traditionally? Like, is it a space for the independent, or the independent is pretty much glutting themselves, out the picture when it comes to just getting a core audience and a viewership and marketability?
As per Spotify, right? So anyone listening or watching, because this is on YouTube, right? Anyone listening, make sure you check the 950 Lounge YouTube channel for the Power Hour, right?
Please do.
As per Spotify, the year of our Lord 2024, there are currently over 5 million podcasts in the world, boasting over 70 million episodes. So to answer your question, the answer to your question is yes. Do we have podcast overload? Absolutely. However, in the world, what drives business? Supply and demand.
Yeah.
So, and thank the pandemic, right? Pandemic got folks hooked on stuff that now that the pandemic is long gone, they're still hooked on.
Yeah.
So while there may numerically be an overload of podcasts, legitimately speaking, knowing how divided the world is in its beliefs, its angles, its perspectives, no, there's not. There's enough, or some a little too many, and then some not enough for each individual niche, and that's why you continue to see the number grow. And just like gambling sites, once gambling was made legal for certain sports, now it's wide open. So yes, numerically, yes, too many. Legitimately speaking, as long as there's a demand, there's never enough.
With that, Mike, we're going to put a nail in this segment. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get back onto the playing court. NBA Finals Game 5. We're going to dive into that deep. Mavericks, Celtics. Can the Celtics close it out? Or do the Mavericks make this thing a little bit more interesting and take it to a Game 6? It's the Power Hour, 950 Kev. Mike, the moderator. Take a quick break, get us a little water, and come on back. We're back on the Power Hour. Kevin Pryor, a.k.a. 950 Kev. Mike, the moderator. We appreciate a few moments of your day, your evening, whenever you're catching this episode. We thank you for it. Obviously, again, we touched on it briefly, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into Game 5 of the NBA Finals. A finals that really, from my viewership levels, has kind of been hard to watch. A couple blowouts. Again, some games that just did not interest me. Mike, I think the ratings have suffered, the overall ratings in this finals, and I think what we become the casual fan has become more, if they don't necessarily recognize a superstar, or if it's no LeBron or Steph Curry, they're not watching. Obviously, that's what this whole thing is about, where you start late night finals games. It's all about the common view, the casual viewer, the common fan that just is going to tune in. So that's been suffering that. But I think now after game 4, with Dallas's version of the blowout, I think we do have a series. Now, whether that series extends just one more day and have game 5 and done, or we go to game 6, I think now we have some intrigue for the first time in the NBA Finals. Your thoughts?
I think what the NBA Finals lacks is pageantry. And here's why I say that. Half the people that watch the Super Bowl don't know a single thing about football.
No.
Right? I read a statistic one year recently within the last 60 months where the largest amount of chicken wings in the free world are bought and sold for the sole purpose of Super Bowl parties.
Yeah.
Right? Next to NCAA, Super Bowl parlays and betting pools.
Right.
Right? So that's the one thing that the NBA lacks. Right? I will go as far as to tell you, once Caitlin Clark hits her stride, and people will pit that Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese narrative, much similar to how the NBA did with Bird and Doc, or excuse me, Bird and Magic. A little bit of Doc thrown in there. I know they rumbled and tumbled one time, right? The NBA currently lacks that. So what reason is there to watch the NBA? Right? It's not a one and done. Super Bowl's a one and done.
Right.
Right? It's not a one and done. Right? Where's the character?
So let's peel that on your back a little bit. There once was a time, rest in peace, David Stern, where the NBA was glorified for how they market their superstars, how they were all by one name: Kobe, Michael, Shaq, Magic, Bird, Iceman. You had athletes that were like, that kind of in a way competed with international soccer stars. What has happened to the NBA? Is it just because there's so much out there? Is it a certain faction that feels like it's not entertaining enough? Is it from a standpoint the game has changed, where now it's more of a scoring game and less of a physical game? I guess you have people who love both sides of that fence. But what is it? Because they're not wearing helmets. They come on 3-4 nights a week. They have major networks. What is the NBA's issue, and what's the rut? Is it LeBron and Steph and the superstars take all the oxygen? But what, in your opinion, what's the ideal behind the lack of exposure for the superstar player? Is it too international?
There is no one answer. It's everything you mentioned all together, right? So I'll work in order thereof. Number one, too many games. Not too many games for me. I had no problems with the 82
Well, you're a
games
fan.
season,
You're right. You watch a game 2 in the morning if you're right.
Right. There's too many games.
Right.
There's at least 2 games on every night. There's 5 on Christmas Day.
Right.
You may have a couple on New Year's Day. They don't do season ain't started yet, so they're not really doing battle with the NFL for Thanksgiving, right? But I mean, for the most part, there's too many games. I could turn on the NBA anytime I want. Can't do that with football. Sunday, maybe Monday.
Well, the NFL look like they're trying to tap into other nights.
Right. They, Monday, Thursday, Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Sunday night, Monday, Thursday. Right? Okay, I get that. But the fact remains, if I'm a fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars and they played Monday night, they didn't play Sunday, and they probably not going to play they're not going to play next Monday night, right? So, number one, the visibility is moderately limited. So you're building up a demand, right? They've tried to meet it. They've added what have we added? An extra game, and we've gone to games on a few extra nights. So we've expanded, but we've stretched the bottle. We haven't left the bottle.
Right.
NBA, too many games.
So do you think it's too many games for a season, or is it just because we are talking about entertainment dollar?
Right.
It's just too many other things going on.
There's too many televised games. Now,
Right,
understand it. That's cutting off your nose to spite your face, right? Because
right.
that's where they about to sign what? I think it's what is it?
Billions.
$8
Yeah,
billion
yeah.
TV deal. Where I read
Right,
like this network has 2 billion, Amazon has 2 billion, NBC is putting in 2 billion.
right.
So it's that amount of exposure. That's number one, right? As
Mm-hmm.
long as there's a game, it's going to be televised. So that's why I'm saying that there's too many games because they're not going to not televise games, right? You got regional TV deals, you got local TV deals, you got national TV deals, you got regional, local, national advertisers. There's too
Right.
much money, but there's also too much of it for consumers to feel like, hey, you know what? I ain't see today. I'll see tomorrow. They play tomorrow.
Yeah.
Knicks play 2 back-to-back. So
Right.
I catch game 2 and I catch game 1 of the following. So I catch them Wednesday instead of Tuesday and catch them Saturday instead of Friday. Right?
Right.
There's too many. So because of that, you have that saturation.
Yeah.
Right?
I come to a conclusion, like I think it was 2021 where the season started a little later because of COVID, and they played, I think, into almost July, August. I think the year the Bucks won. I like to say that just from me being a little selfish here, that if they start the season, let's say Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and went from late December, January up until maybe August. Because you sit back and think, right? Um, the NFL sucks the energy out until February, right? That's when Super Bowl happens, right? And I think now they're going to play the Super Bowl on President's Weekend. So now, ladies and gentlemen, most of America will be off on Monday. Mission solved, right? So you really don't watch the NBA, in my opinion. And again, it's just I'm a big sports junkie, but the common fan until maybe the playoffs. You really get into it, April, May, this time of year. If your favorite team or a star is identifiable. But if you played the season, like if right now as we're in June and you're playing like the end of your regular season and you're starting your playoffs in July, August, September, and you end the season right at where the NFL kicks off, almost similar to how the WNBA has their season. And I know the NBA's basketball is only played in the winter because Naismith, when he created the sport, it was a way to keep his athletes in shape, right? But I'm just saying, like most of the time we see basketball play in the parks and summer leagues. Would you be up, against the NBA starting a little later? They start in November, so if they just started December, January, it's not like it's, changing the apple cart that much. Would that help keeping the same amount of games because these guys want to get paid, but just making the season go maybe to end instead of ending in June, ending in August, late August?
I've always been a proponent of the NBA starting their season Christmas Day and ending it August. Why? Because when they end it, who would be starting?
The
NFL.
Right.
Baseball is baseball, right? So the baseball fan is going to watch baseball.
They got a whole nother set of issues on a national.
Right, whole nother set of issues. Secondly, you don't have too many. You don't have, this ain't football, so you don't have baseball teams and NBA teams sharing the same field, right? You don't have that. Your average NBA stadium does about 22,000 at tip top best. It's usually somewhere between 17.9 and 19.8 per for seating venues, right? So that'd be the perfect time. NFL is about to be over.
Yep.
NBA, nobody's training camps does the same amount of games that they used to. So usually the first 15 to 20 games of any sports season, the sport just totally blows because dudes are still working their way.
And with the NFL simply getting ready to get rid of preseason games, that helps. And then think about this for a second. Because you're playing in the summer, right? And we're talking about from a marketability standpoint, how cool. And I know they've done it with I know Nebraska did it with volleyball. They put them in the stadium. How cool would it be if the Knicks played at Yankee Stadium, middle of July?
How many times you used to watch the Harlem Globetrotters play on aircraft carriers?
Yeah.
Right? Concerts.
The Lakers play a game at Dodger Stadium. It's such a big place. They can give free tickets out to a majority of the kids.
Could you imagine a Sunday daytime playoff game, Knicks going in the Eastern Conference Finals, but they playing it at Citi Field? Could you
Yeah,
imagine that? Could you
yeah.
imagine them playing ball in front of, I mean, what are you talking at that point? 40,000, 30,000?
Well,
Twice as
baseball stadium is about most baseball stadiums. I think City Field's about 40,000. You have more seats because of small. You could probably have 65, 70,000.
right?
Very similar to what the Detroit Pistons did do when they played in the
in the older
Dome. Yeah,
days,
yeah,
or the Spurs in the Alamo
yeah.
Dome,
Right.
right? Yeah, you'd be looking at that. Fill the joint up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So but listen, I mean, hockey does what? The Winter Classic where they play out
Right.
on
They
real
do it.
ice,
Yes, they do it in stadiums. Right.
right? So
But
what's
you
the
can't
problem?
do that in the middle dead of winter and guys in tank tops and shorts. But I mean, Adam Silver, NBA Play Association, if you're listening, maybe it's something to think about because I'm to the belief where the NBA is one of the behemoths, right? NFL, college football, NBA. It's that the and again, this is all done for the casual, right? The junkies like us are going to watch regardless, right?
Regardless,
But if you think about it, the casual fan, it's more and more things going on. There's more and more things to tap into that will hold you back. We see the NFL who's king, right? The NFL is saying, okay, you know what, NBA, screw your Christmas. We're playing on Christmas. College football, screw your bowl,
right, right.
your bowl,
Your bowl series, right?
yeah, the playoff series. We're playing that day. Again, so if the NFL is going to suck the oxygen, it's only going to leave a little bit left for everybody else. And if the NBA was smart, again, to kind of tap into the summer league tradition, of like Rucker Park and the Drew League in LA and all these other things, playing summer games. It keeps their players, in more sanctioned environments in the summer. Again, if we wouldn't even take it to that level, but I think it's something that can really help. And I think, again, if you're watching the games earlier, if the casual fan is identifying and tuned in earlier, when the big games happen, the playoffs and the end of the season, the finals, they're already tuned in. They're already dialed into the new stars, the Anthony Edwardses, the Jalen Brunsons of the world, the new stars, because LeBron is 40. He's just about,
Out.
hasta la vista. Steph Curry's getting older. Kevin Durant, I don't think he holds the same gravitas, but nevertheless, he's getting older. It's these new guys. And again, the same thing with the NBA took a little dip when Jordan retired until LeBron came. I mean, we had Kobe, but it was Kobe and Shaq. And then, really that was it. And most people looked at them as the modern day form of Mike Tyson in the NBA. Nobody was beating them but themselves. So now I think the NBA will have a new thing. There's no more college basketball. I mean, whereas years ago, a guy can play 2, 3 years in college and you've identified him, you become a fan of his game, you understand his game, he's got marketability, and he comes in the NBA and that continues. That's not the case anymore. So the NBA is really in a dire straits. How do we keep our athletes, our young athletes especially, how do we build that machine quicker? Than them just saying stupid stuff on X or a podcast. And I think that's a really serious thing because right now the NFL is king and everybody else is fighting for scraps.
I'm not so sure that change of the space wouldn't benefit other sports, right? So let's reverse it to where the NBA is playing basically when the WNBA plays, and the WNBA in their shortened season, or short season of what it is, would
Mm-hmm.
play right before the NBA, right? So you'd have the WNBA rolling in their constituency, right? Their constituency, you could see watching them more so
And it's
in the
a
winter,
shorter season. So if you
shorter
played
season
them from September
to January.
to January, right? Yeah,
We played them September to January,
right,
right? They wouldn't necessarily be, and this is no slight to them, they wouldn't necessarily, in my opinion, be seen as a economic shortcoming,
right.
right? Because now you're starting. So, okay, so I'm watching this to get revved up for the NBA, not necessarily watching the NBA. Then it's like, do I
And not
really?
to mention with the WNBA and women's basketball in general, it would support it would help college women's basketball because the women's game, those girls are playing 4 years. They're not leaving early to go to W at this current time. So again, by having a W and while you're revving up women's basketball season in January, leading them into the tournament, it also gives the ladies who play up until March, April, if you play in the national championship, a couple of months before they have to go right into the NBA. We
Not
know
to
now,
not to mention it's a better grade of ball.
right?
But
And then
that's
we
another show.
obviously,
That's another show.
right, because we realize that in the men's game, the young kids that are going from the pros to the league, even though it would hurt their timeline, they're younger guys and they're pretty much freshmen or sophomores. And I think what's going to eventually happen with the NBA, and I know we got to go to a break, is they're probably going to go back to the hardship rule anyway and just have these guys come straight out of college. I think that's eventually what happen. I know NIL is big. Once NIL starts to get regulated by the federal government, and trust me, it's coming, I think you'll see guys go straight into the league again. We'll take a quick break. This is a great conversation. And we were both talking about the Mavericks and Celtics, but again, it's always a great thing about the powwow. We can go any which way we choose to go. We'll take a quick break. We're gonna come back and put the ribbon on this thing. It's the powwow. Don't go nowhere. Come on back. We're back on the Power Hour. It's your boy 950 Kevin Pryor, my cohort in this thing, Mike, the moderator. You know, Mike, we really kind of touched on a lot of the off the field stuff tonight and today on sports, and I kind of want to stay in that theme as we wrap up. For my college football fans, the Big 12 Conference, which is run by Brett Yarmark, former director of the Barclays Center, Rock Nation fame, is looking to outsource the conference name. This would be the first time this has ever happened. And it seems like the leaders in the clubhouse are all state to obviously be called the All State Conference or Big All State or All State 12. Yeah. But this is a new era of college sports where the Big 12 is kind of behind the gates with the Big 10 and the SEC. And this is a way they feel they can kind of shorten that gap by selling their naming rights to get more money. So the universities can have more money for NIL and get better players. I know we got about 2 minutes left, but I'd love to know your opinion. Even though, hey, listen, this is the way of sports. It's all about business. It's all about the mighty dollar. At the end of the day, are we going down a slippery slope?
No. I think what you're looking at is the chickens coming home to roost. I think it's always been business, and it's always been business for educational institutions, right? So you just don't see it that way. These you might as well consider NIL money to me reparations. That's exactly what it is. Dude's been working for free forever. You think that just because he gets a scholarship that, scholarships are 1-year contracts that you're subjected to be terminated at any time. So I don't have a problem with that. And especially if you got to go pay NIL money, which means that now you got to improve your facilities to make a kid who's about to get $600,000 and ain't barely saw $600 in his life. Now he's about to get some money. Oh no, this ain't comforting. You know what I'm saying? Y'all need to bring some better steaks in here to go with these better beans and this better rice, because the old steak, beans, and rice ain't work.
Your rice-a-roni ain't gonna cut it.
Cut it.
Again, I hear you. We're gonna definitely do a show on that in the near future, because I think that touches on a lot of different tentacles that I think we just don't have enough time now. Mike, it's been a good one, man. Number one in the books. You know, we're still a new show here, the Power Hour. But again, as we appreciate the time of our listeners and viewers. Again, you catch this show multiple places and multiple times. We thank you for a few moments. Again, always catch 950 Lounge, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, multiple networks, Monday through Friday. That's the mothership. My name is Kevin Pryor. He's Mike, the moderator. We thank you again for listening to the Power Hour. And as I always say, if you want to go sail big ships, go where the water's deep. We'll see you soon. Power Hour is out.